Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Serena.
And I'm James.
And today we are talking about the karmic partner or the third party. If you don't know, my free ebook is live. So you can check the link below. We'll put it in the description and you can get the free ebook. So yes, very, very exciting. It's called Breaking Karmic Ties. So this is literally about everything that we talked about today. So yes, plus the tips, everything that I needed in order to break those ties, in order to make sure they didn't come back, because we've said goodbye to the karmic for good now and we are free from the karmic. So yeah, if you're looking for more information on that, definitely check the links below. If you're looking for one-on-one support, you can also check the links to work with either one of us, whoever you resonate with. I think a lot of twin flames deal with this particular issue. A lot of times one twin will be with another person when they meet their twin, or within the separation phase, if they're both single, they come together, then they separate. One twin may date, one twin may not, right? And I've heard this described in a lot of different ways. One thing that I think is really interesting that I've recently come across is that essentially like the divine feminine, right, would be the one that's doing work in like the 5D, and then the divine masculine is doing work in the 3D. So I've seen this explained as like a lot of times it's the divine masculine that will date, and that's because they're working through karma and they're working through lessons in the 3D, in the physical reality. Whereas like the divine feminine may not date because they are working through things in the 5D. So they're working on like an emotional, energetic level and going through lessons like that. For us, I'm gonna say that this will come with another video because I'm making another video on this. But I don't particularly resonate super strongly with the divine feminine, divine masculine.
Not for the two of us.
Yeah, because like, you know, usually the divine feminine is the chaser and the divine masculine is the runner. And now we all know that that doesn't have to necessarily play into gender roles at all. It's just more so like your energy signature. But I feel like, and it's my experience that, and this is just a little side note, it's my experience that we both have divine feminine, divine masculine within us, right? And during this time in separation, or like before we come together in union, we're actually just balancing those polarities. And so one person may, you know, struggle with something that the other twin doesn't. And this is where a lot of twin merging happens too, because I found myself completing lessons that I'd never really been able to successfully complete before. Like, let's say consistency. You're an incredibly consistent person, like to a fault sometimes.
When I want to be.
And I was never like a consistent person at all. Like, you had to hold my hand over the fire in order to make me consistent. So I was like kind of very flighty and like would start things and never finish them. And so like when we were in separation, I was really working a lot with consistency. I was like consistently doing a daily routine, literally the same exact thing every single day. I would wake up, I would have my tea, I would do my yoga, I would do my journaling, I would do my meditation in that order every day for 6 months until I came back to you, pretty much.
And they carried on for a little bit afterwards as well.
Yeah. And so, you know, this is where, you know, I don't necessarily subscribe to the divine feminine, divine masculine thing, because I feel like there's so much flipping, flopping over when you're going through those lessons with your partner in separation. You know, it's not just one or just the other. But going back to what we're actually talking about today, I'm gonna give you also the definition here. So a third party is like any person, obviously, that's not in the twin flame dynamic. So that's, you know, if you're dating somebody else, or if you have a husband or you have a wife or whatever. And then obviously we all know the karmic is like the one which also is a third party, right? The karmic is technically a third party, but that's a more
descriptive version.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. It's a more descriptive way to talk about that. And so the karmic then is obviously, as you guys probably know, if you haven't already, we have tons of videos on the karmic. But the karmic is essentially where, you know, you are learning and breaking these karmic patterns and these lessons to essentially prepare for your twin flame dynamic. When we met, if you guys don't already know, you can watch my runner perspective video up here, I'll link it above. I was with another partner when I met you.
Yep.
And so basically today we're getting like the real live chasers perspective on what it's like when the runner is with the karmic, when the runner is with a third party. What is that like? How did we deal with it as a couple? And, you know, like all of the above. So so I was first with a partner when I met you.
Yeah.
And obviously from the get-go, you guys, if you even watched that video, I was very open with you. I told you exactly what was going on. I was like, hey, you know, I was in an open relationship. I'm interested in you and getting to know you. You know, what do you think about that? And what were your thoughts on that? Like, was that weird to you? Were you like, I don't really care because I don't know if it's going to turn into anything? Like, what was your thoughts?
That's a damn good question.
Did it bother you that I was with another person? Like, was there any judgment on your side? Like, oh, like this girl's kind of a, you know, not so nice word because she's with somebody else and she's like wants to be with me, or like was there judgment there?
I mean, I think ultimately there's always a little bit of judgment. I think to say that no, there was none whatsoever would be just me lying. Did I sit there and judge you for it? No, I didn't. I obviously, through my own relationships or the rest, dealt with a lot of things, and through friends and all the rest. And one of my previous partners had asked me at one point if I wanted to be in an open relationship, and I was like, no. Which, for me personally, as you know, it's not something that has ever really
appealed to you.
Yeah, it hasn't appealed to me. It's never been something I've been like, that sounds like an idea. Because for me, the way that I grew up as well is you have your partner, that's who you're with. You're choosing this person for more than just sleeping with them. It's for multiple different reasons. And there's just something more about it for me personally, when you can choose one person who you want to spend your life with. Nothing against people that want to be more exploratory. Thank you. See, you help me now, help you. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It was one of those moments where you are open with me, and just the fact that you're also open about it and being the person that you were, I think also made it that much easier for me that I didn't actually really think of anything being judgmental or trying to be elsewhere. So I think for me the big part of it was the way that you came across and the type of person that you were. That's what really helped me with that as well. Because at that point I was kind of like, well, I'm not expecting anything, so let's just see if I can get to know this person. If something happens, something doesn't happen. It's not like I'm losing out. I get to meet somebody who, generally speaking, I would not be able to meet. I get to see another whole perspective on life, I suppose, as well, and a different way of looking at relationships, and there was quite a lot that went into it.
Yeah. And then so after we were together for a few days and then I had to leave. And if you guys don't know, like, I consider this the most heartbroken I've ever been. Like,
yeah, it sucked.
Yeah, it really did. Like, even after breaking up with partners of like 5 years, even after like, you know, I've had breakups of long-term partners in my life. Like, this was the hardest for me. Like, it was the hardest for me to say goodbye to you, like, more than any other relationship I've ever been in. And so that to me was like an aha moment. Like, oh crap! Like, what is this?
What is this?
Yeah,
feeling?
What does this mean? Like, That's very interesting.
I had a similar thing when I was talking to one of my friends, and they're asking me about how things went with you, because obviously you're coming back and the whole story and all the rest. And the first thing I said to them, I said, well, I mean, I'd been in a relationship for 5 years previously. What I felt with you in those 3 days completely and utterly trumped the 5 years of this relationship and the person who I thought I was just going to be marrying and all the rest. And suddenly someone walks into life and it's like, hi, and you're like, shit. Your whole life changes, and just the way you feel about them. And it was hard when you left. I remember I was doing a beach day that day, and I was on the verge a few times of being in tears, and fortunately I had some really cool guests that kind of sat down with me and we spoke a while. And yeah, it was just, I had a good support system, which I think really helped me. For you didn't necessarily have that, because you had a lonesome drive back to Durban, which was about 7 hours. Yeah. Which is hard.
Yeah.
Especially after what we went through, it didn't make it any easier on you, but I think as well for you personally, that time to really think about it and explore your emotions and sit with it, I think that helped you hugely. Where for me, my circumstance was perfect for me because I had people around me, but I was also distracted by work. And yeah, it's quite weird to actually think how it worked out perfectly for both of us and both.
Person. So when I went to meet you, I actually met, it's so crazy the way things happen, but I actually met another girl. Her name was Emily. And we drove back to see you together. So I didn't have to go by myself. And I remember we were sitting in our bunks, like the night after, like we really had like an intense connection. And she asked me like, how will you, and this was like the perfect guiding question she could have asked. She asked me, how will you know to stay with my karmic partner or to go with you? And I was like, this has happened to me once before in my life. And so like I had this experience already once. And it's like that moment when your partner starts looking off, where you notice things about them you never noticed before. You know, like that's always like I had one previous partner that I noticed like he was really starting to look like sickly, like too skinny, and like he just didn't look like somebody I knew anymore. And so I was like, I know that will happen if I'm meant to leave my karmic, who I didn't know was my karmic at the time. If I'm meant to leave him, something will start looking off. And it did. It was like this whole veil like came off. Like, so when I went back to my karmic partner, so this is also very common among twins, is the twins will meet, and then maybe then the runner twin has to go into the karmic relationship. Maybe they weren't in it yet, but now they have to go into it, or now they're dating somebody else. Like, how did you feel knowing that I was going back to that person?
Well, it wasn't great. I mean, he had met this person who completely flipped my world upside down, and like I said, made me experience something in 3 days where it trumped any relationship I had previously. So it was a very difficult part. And I think the one part that really helped me is the fact that we were so open and honest the entire time as we were talking, back and forth messages whenever either one of us had signal. And I think the fact that we were able to just stay in communication with one another really helped that process, because during that whole point as well, I didn't really know where I stood. I was kind of floating at that point. I knew that there's this really incredible person that I really liked that I probably shouldn't really like in the circumstances.
Did you wonder if I felt for you the same way you felt for me? Okay, so you didn't instantly know like we felt the same, but you had a question in your mind like, did I feel the same?
I had an inkling that you had similar feelings. Whether we were on the same page exactly, I would only be guessing. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, you kind of literally flipped my entire world upside down and said, "Here you go, figure this out." And I was like, and fortunately for me, like I said, I mean, it was peak season, so I got really busy as well, which just helped me kind of in some ways distract myself, which is a good thing for me. But at the same time, I had down hours where I was able to sit and think, and I'd get these nice long videos and voice notes and paragraphs that are about 3 books long from you, and being able to sit and have the time to really read those, go do something, come back, read again, and like, okay, cool, now I can reply. That also hugely helped. But it was difficult knowing that you were going back to your partner, and I was kind of almost left behind. And I mean, as we were chatting, obviously you were telling me what was happening on your side and how things are going, and from my side, it kind of seemed to me like you were going to be coming back. There was something that told me like, just be patient and just stay where you are and just keep doing what you're doing and just be yourself and be there for you as well. And I don't know, there was just something inside me that said, just persevere a little bit. What's the worst that can happen? She goes, doesn't ever come back, you never see her again. Life goes on.
Yeah. So like percentage wise, okay, so that's an interesting thing that you brought up, like be patient, right? Yeah. But persevere a little bit. Like percentage wise, let's say 100% is going all in, like I want this so bad, this is my life has to go in this direction, and then obviously 0 is like I don't care what happens either way. Where were you at that point? Because you had to be somewhere in the middle.
To put an exact percentage to it, at the start, after you just left, and within those first, call it 2 weeks, it's difficult to say because I think it fluctuated quite a lot. There were times where it was like, hey, let's do this, and other times like, should I be doing this? And it was up and then it was down. So there was a bit of a wave that was ridden through it. I don't think there was ever any point where I could say it was like 60-40 or 70-30 or 50-50 or anything of the sorts. Obviously, after meeting you, I wanted to get to know you better, and I wanted to see would there be a possibility, but as well at the same time I also knew for myself I didn't want to share you if you were going to be mine. I wanted to keep you all to myself. It was a very tricky situation, and it was something that I feel that you only really know whether what you're doing is right or wrong afterwards.
Yeah.
And you just got to kind of trust yourself and trust that whatever you do, no matter how much or how little you want to put in, that's completely up to you as a person to decide. You just need to be satisfied at the end of the day that, okay, well, I did what I feel was right for me. Did it work out? Didn't work out. And if it didn't work out, it actually worked out.
Right.
Because things don't not work out. They work out for a different reason,
Right.
not the reason you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's also, it's perspective a lot of the times.
Yeah. So I think a lot of chasers will be watching this because they're wondering, okay, what can I do differently if I'm in separation, and why is the runner still with the karmic? Like, what can I do to influence that or change that? And I just want to say, like, obviously, as you just literally said, like, the chaser has to do what they feel is right. And I think that this is really important because sometimes the chaser will get too much into the mind, and you'll go back to those early days of like, I got to pretend like I don't like them, or I have to, this, or I let their relationship trigger me, and then I get angry, and then I blame them, so you really have to get out of the mind and go to like where James is saying, which is authentically who you are, and like act from that place, not from a jealous place, not from a place of like anger, not from a place of like insecurity, but like as from a place of like, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and like if I want this, then I'm going to go for it, but not from a place of like I need, right? Yeah. And that's where the chaser gets that bad rap, I think, a lot of times.
But also to still be aware that you're going to experience all of those emotions.
Of course.
And they are completely natural.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're doing something wrong if you feel jealous, or you feel angry, or you feel anxious, or you feel like I just really want this right now.
Yeah.
That's fine. But when you go through those emotions, you kind of, if you just kind of trust your own intuition and listen to yourself, you'll know when to be completely onto it straight away, or if you're going to be like, okay, let me actually just sit with this for a little while and think about it and be like, okay. So you'll kind of, without thinking about it, you'll just kind of know, which is a really confusing way to put it. As I'm saying it, I'm like, this makes no sense, but it does. You just gotta trust yourself.
I really liked how you said that, because you're absolutely right. You're going to feel all of those things, and the point is to feel all of those things so you can transcend them. Like that's incredibly important, to feel those emotions. Now, maybe not to act on them, like you said. You have to be really,
not always.
you have to be really in tune with yourself, and that also doesn't mean don't communicate them, right? So there's a really big difference between I'm angry and I'm going to react, and I'm angry so I need to have some communication with my partner. Let me have respect for this person, because the last thing that I would want is to have a miscommunication, which I think happens with twins a lot. Is like one twin will do something and the one twin interprets it this way when it totally wasn't meant that way. Like today we had that literal thing just happen.
It happens often.
Yes.
That's life.
That's life. That's when you have two different brains. Things like that, when you still need to communicate with each other, right? Especially if you know something's going to hurt them, or especially if you're hurt, you still need to communicate that.
When you choose your actual partner, your twin flame, you find that person that's really truly yours, you don't want to hinder them, and there's going to be things they're going to do, they're going to absolutely
that you want to control
annoy
them.
the shit out of you, and you're going to be like, no, just stop. And you got to be like, it's fine, just let them do their thing, I'll just go do my thing. And you kind of work around it. I mean, we go through it constantly. There's certain things that I do that you don't like, and there's certain things you do that I don't like, but we communicate about it, and we say, look, that's not particularly my favorite thing in the world, and don't have to change it, but I just want you to know so that there's nothing that's kind of been pushed under the couch and slowly building up and building up and building up until it explodes, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong as well.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that full open communication, and it's difficult, and we still struggle with it at times. And I don't think it's anything you ever really completely
No, because you
disappears.
keep growing and you keep changing, and as you continue to evolve, you'll always keep changing, which means you need to keep communicating those changes. So it will always ever evolve, which is why I feel like this channel is so important. Is because the twin flame journey isn't over at union. That's not the end of the work. It's not like, okay, now you can go live happily ever after. It's like, okay, now you get to do the spiritual work with another person, not just by yourself anymore. So it adds a new dynamic to it, and it's like, okay, now there's finally somebody I can play ball with. It's that's kind of how I felt, because I always felt up until this point like, I didn't have the ability to really like collaborate in growth with somebody like I do with you, where you can really, me so well, and you're very intuitive, so you can tell me when I'm in my stories, or I don't like it, obviously.
No, she doesn't.
I don't like it, but you can tell me when I'm with my stories. And it's like, my ego doesn't like it, right? But my soul is like, yes, give me more of that. My soul wants that evolution, and our souls want that evolution. We want each other to call each other on that kind of stuff, and that is a natural process of how we want things to go.
But it's to speak to that as well.
Yes.
Well, as well, just say to tell your partner, even though like that really annoys me that you bring that up, but thank you.
Yeah, but I still want you to be you, and I still
because if you don't say those things, your partner isn't going to know that there's both sides to that. Because a lot of the times, when we're only showing one side of the coin, we tend to think that the other side isn't there, and sometimes it really helps for our partner to still say, look, this is what I'm showing you, this side, but this side's still there. And I still appreciate it. I don't like it, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's true. That's absolutely true. And I didn't thank you for that earlier today. And I was like thinking about my mom, and like how my mom, when she was, so this is a quick aside, but I didn't, so let's do the healing right now, because we're here.
Why not?
Like, that's always how my mom would say things, and I know that's totally how your mom would say things too. So the fact that you said it was like, so like I was like a 4-year-old kid again, and I was like running around having a nice time in the house, and my mom's like, ah! And I'm like, ugh! And I'm like, so then I had to tell you, like, I have every right to like walk in this house that way, not thinking that you're not my mom. And I know that I have every right to walk in the house that way. So thank you for bringing that up.
My pleasure.
Thank you for calling me out. Going back to the karmic partner and the third party, right? So one thing that we struggled with that I didn't actually know was a struggle was, for me, breaking things off with the karmic, right? So we already know, like, it wasn't easy for you when I went back to him, but then I left him. And I said, no relationships. I'm going to continue talking to you. And I'm going to break things off with him. But obviously, I also continued talking to him because we had all of our lives were together. We had a storage unit where when we were traveling, all of our stuff was in that same unit. I had all my bills going to his house, like my medical aid, like all of that stuff. So our lives were very intertwined. And he was still on the trip. So he was still traveling on this trip that I had left. So there were times where he was calling me, asking me for emotional support, or, things like that, that were really, really hard to come to terms with, I think, for you. So tell me how you felt about that, like the fact that I was still talking to him, like how did you feel, and then how did you deal with it?
It was difficult because, I mean, for me, you had left your partner, and generally speaking, I mean, this from my own experience, when partners split, generally there's a period where they kind of don't talk, at least for a while. Where in this case, you guys spoke every couple of days, which to me felt a bit threatening. I mean, here you just left this person, supposedly at the time for me, you just come back to my country so that we can see if something would happen. In some ways made me jealous, in some ways made me angry, in some ways just kind of pushed my buttons the wrong way a bit, because I kind of thought for a lot of reasons that it was a bit selfish on his side, that he was now trying to take more time away from you when you were also now trying to move further away from him, which was then in turn as well sounding selfish, taking time away from me being with you and me getting to know you and us starting to see if we can grow together. But at the same time, I knew you guys had so much bound together from your travels. I mean, you've been together for a few years as well, and a lot of things that were all kind of set together, and he didn't really have anyone else to help him through a lot of the emotional times. And so I had this conflict of understanding where he was coming from and also being incredibly pissed off where he was coming from. And I did struggle with that for a while. I know for I think at least the first, like, I don't even know, like 2 to 4 months or so, I didn't really say anything about it because I didn't want to also overstep, because here I was this supposedly new boyfriend who's only like, just in the picture. And I didn't want to tell you how to do things again. At times I felt that I was kind of just on the outside and kind of was there when you wanted me, but then not when you didn't. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not necessarily true. So I struggled with it. And eventually I did bring it up to you. I did say that I understand, but it really ticks me off that every single time something goes wrong, the first person he's running to is you. And then because the person you are as well, being who you are, you're not going to say, no, fuck off, I don't want to talk to you right now. You're going to be like, yes, how can I help you? Because you are the kind of person, you're very nurturing. So it was difficult. And I think once I brought it up with you and you started to see where I was coming from, and the fact that I had kind of suffered in silence in a way, I think that also helped us go through that, and eventually got to a point where you started to see more of my side, and then you also started to kind of space yourself out more from him until it got to a point like where we are now.
It felt like extra pressure on something that was already kind of fragile.
It made it feel that I was in a relationship, but only by like the skin of my teeth. Like I was like trying to crawl into something that wasn't really actually open.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to bring up that goes with that is, do you remember when we were in separation, I was back in the States, and I told you, like, I'm scared I won't be able to love again for like a certain amount. Like I don't think I said a certain amount of time, but do you remember what you said? It was so funny, your response. You were like, it's okay. If I have to put in the bulk of the love for 5 years, I'll be okay. And I was like, 5 years? Would you be in a relationship with somebody who couldn't love you back for 5 years? I was like, damn. And that really showed me like the type of person that you are, that you were like, oh, I'll be okay, like loving you the most for 5 years by the time you like really open up.
I mean, as well, you think of the start of our relationship, because you just come out of all this, you didn't necessarily have
very much to give,
and you weren't used to receiving as much as I tend to give.
That was very overwhelming, and still we work through that,
which was hard for you. And for me, if I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna give you everything. Whether you like it or not, you stuck with me, okay? You drank the Kool-Aid, that's it, it's game over. So in the start as well, I was happy to put in the work and be there for you and mostly support you, because I had been through something a few years prior, so I understood everything that not everything, but a lot of what you're going through.
My other question to you before we close out here would be, was some of your anger and jealousy, mostly anger and frustration, because of the fact that you knew the emotional toll that relationship took on me? Like, was there some of that in there too, or was Definitely. It all mostly just you?
No, I think a big part of it at times was definitely from me, but as well, I knew everything that you had gone through in that relationship and how it had affected you and how it hadn't nourished you the way it was meant to. And because of all of that also really annoyed me, because it kind of felt like, we were meant to start something together to see, and we're supposed to be nourishing one another, and here's this other person who never really well, I don't want to say never because he did, but he didn't nourish you the way that I believe you deserved, and he took more than he gave to you, and you trying to now space yourself away from that, and they take him more, and they take him more, and they take him more, and I'm just like, just leave her alone. She's not yours anymore. So there was definitely a big part of that really got to me. That it's just felt like he was trying to take more from you than what I personally believe he deserved. And yeah, I don't know. He's lucky he was further up north in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I mean, that was a hard time for sure, you know, like just thinking back to, you know, where I was at the end of that. And like, I was actually embarrassed for you to see me like that, you know, and I think a lot of that was like, that's why I wanted to go home instead of like come back to you and Coffee Bay, was because I was embarrassed that like I had let myself get to that point. And like I didn't want somebody to see me so broken, even though I know you already did, and you already saw me broken, you already loved me, which is why I was able to, you know, like come back and we were able to build what we were able to build. But like there's a big part of me that was like, wow, how do I even piece this back together, you know? And I wanted to do a lot of that on my own, even though you helped me so much, you know, like even just the support you were able to give energetically and emotionally. I didn't even need the physical support because that'd have been too much. But, you know, like it was hard for me to allow another person to watch me go through that, because it was something I really needed to build myself back up to a point where I was confident enough to know I was moving in the right direction and I was making the right decisions and I was making them for me, you know, that I was doing everything for me. So that was really important.
No, I really appreciate it because I understood what you're going through and how hard it is, because like I said, I've been through it, and the fact that you allowed me to be a part of that in certain areas and the areas you wanted me to be there, it meant a lot. And it showed me that yes, you might be a little bit broken right now, but you're still willing to accept and willing to try and move forward and to, you know, progress through everything that we want to progress through.
So we hope this video helped you if you're the chaser. If you're the runner, obviously we hope this helped you too. Maybe you
Both
can
sides.
you can find some similarities in my story. But if you're specifically the chaser, hopefully this helps give you an understanding that like these are hard things to go through. It's hard to watch your partner with another person. It's hard for me even when I knew what you went through, and that was years prior to even meeting me, you know. But like when I met this person for the first time, like I was very judgmental towards them because I was like, I know what you did. And you know, like there's a part of you that's very protective of each other, you know. So I hope this video helped you guys. If you have any questions, put them down below. You know, if you want to see more, or if there's suggestions that you guys have on content, please let us know. We are happy to make videos for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for being here today. And we will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.